Hello, second graders. Today we are going to look at identifying fractions as parts of a whole. So yesterday we had a little video from Miss Ruday about fractions of a set, and that was fun to see Miss Ruday. And so today we're going to do a little bit more work with fractions of a set and talking about how much more would make a whole number. So we are going to look at page 71 in our textbook today. It looks like this. And let's get right into it. So number 8 says 12 counters are divided into equal groups. And so we can see here we have 12 counters and they are split into groups of 4. And here we are thinking about, well, how many counters are yellow? So we might be thinking, well, there's 4 of them, right? 4 out of 12 counters are yellow. And you would be correct in saying that there are 4 out of 12. But there are also, if we're thinking about them in groups, these are 3 equal groups. And so we could say, well, the number of groups that have yellow counters is 1. So there's 1 group that has yellow counters, and then the total number of groups that there are 3. So 1/3 of the counters are yellow. And again, this is if we're talking about groups. So we could say that 1/3 are yellow. And then how many groups are red? We could say, well, 2 out of the 3 groups are red. So 1/3 are yellow and 2/3 are red. All right, the next one says, if we have 20 counters that are divided into equal groups. So we're going to think about, well, the number of groups that have pink counters. There's 1 group that has pink counters out of how many groups altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. So we could say that 1/4 of the counters are pink, because again, we're counting the groups. And then it says what fraction of the counters are blue. So we can look at the groups that are blue. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 counters that are blue. All right, number 10 says what fraction of the counters are yellow? And again, now we're kind of thinking about groups here for number 10. So you can see that there are 2 groups that are yellow. And there are 1, 2, 3 groups that are red. So here, this person is helping us to see that 3/5 of the counters are red. And if 3/5 are red, 2/5 are yellow. Number 11 says, what fraction of the fruit are apples? And how many apples are there? Well, we can see here that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 apples. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bananas. So we could think of this as 2 groups that are equal, even though they're different things. But here's 5 and here's 5. So we have 2 equal groups of fruit. And one of the groups is apples out of 2 equal groups. And 1 group out of 2 equal groups is bananas. So we could say, well, actually, our fraction would be 1 out of 2 equal groups. And how do we say that fraction? We say, oops, I forgot to erase, 1/2. So 1/2 of the fruit are apples. 1/2 of the fruit are apples. And there are 5 apples altogether. Now you might be wondering, well, what if I just wanted to count up the individual fruit? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 apples. Oops. Out of how many fruit altogether? Would be 10. And next year, when you get to 3rd grade, you're going to learn about something called equivalent fractions. Now, you don't really need to know this yet, but I bet a lot of you are curious as to when we're talking about fractions of a set. 1 of the groups out of 2 of the groups are apples, so it's 1/2. But you would also be correct to say, well, 5 apples out of 10 fruit are apples. And these fractions are actually equal. Okay, so again, you're going to learn more about this next year in third grade. But if you were wondering, those are called equivalent fractions. All right, so let's take a look at a couple more. For number 12, it says, what fraction of the children are girls? And how many girls are there? So it looks like we have, I think these are supposed to be the girls at the top. They all have longer hair, but we know girls and boys can have whatever kind of hair they want. But anywho, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 2 equal groups. There are 8 here and there are 8 here. So we could say, well, one group out of 2 equal groups are girls. So one group out of 2 equal groups are girls. And we already counted up there are 8 girls. And so if you wanted to say, well, there's 8 girls out of 16 people altogether, then our fraction would be 8/16. And again, you don't need to know this, but next year you're going to learn about equivalent fractions. And 1/2 is actually equal to 8/16. Now, if you're wondering, well, Miss Taylor, how can these be equal? Let me show you a quick trick. Fractions are equivalent if you can multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So we can think about, well, I know 1 times 8 is 8, and 2 times 8 is 16. Did we multiply them by the same number? Yes, we did. And so those are equivalent. And again, you don't need to know this, but I thought you might want to. Alrighty, so I think we're going to pause there for now. And your homework for today is pages 108 to 109. So let's quickly take a look at these pages. Here we are. All right, so 108 looks like this. It says, what fraction of the fruit is made up of apples? And so we have some equal groups of fruit. Here's an equal group. And there are 5 equal groups, and we can see that one of those groups is apples. So we would say there's 1 part apples out of 5 equal parts. So our fraction would be 1/5. 1/5. But you would also be correct if you said, well, I'm going to say 2/10, because 2 out of 10. But here we're kind of looking at the groups. So 1/5 of the groups are apples. All right. So let's see. Number 2 says circled a set that has 1/4 shaded. So you're looking at, does this have 1/4 shaded, or does this one have 1/4 shaded? I think it's this one, because there's 1 out of 4. All right. Here it says write the fraction for the shaded part. And here we can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 equal groups. 3 of them are shaded. So our fraction for the shaded parts would be 1, 2, 3 out of 4 equal parts, 3/4. So for this one, we have 1, 2, 3 equal groups. 1 part is shaded, so we would say 1/3. Here we have 3 equal groups. 2 of them are shaded, so we would say 1, 2, 2/3. And the last page of your homework, it says to circle groups of 3. What fraction of the animals are monkeys? So what they're asking us to do is circle, here's a group of 3, here's a group of 3, and here's a group of 3. And there's not really a spot for your answer. You can just write it anywhere down below here. So what fraction of the animals are monkeys? And again, we're trying to look at groups, fractions as groups today. So we would say, well, if we already circled them into groups of 3, one of those groups out of 3 equal groups are monkeys. All right, so that is our homework for today, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye, students.